John and Shane. How are you?
Good.
Good,
All
Good,
right.
thank
good. Congratulations to you both on LaRoy, Texas, arriving in theaters and on demand April 12th. John, let me start with you. I am geeking out right now because I was a huge fan of Past Lives. Congrats on all you've done in your career. So, what was your first reaction when you first read Shane's script? Did you get that No Country for Old Men type of vibe when you read it?
Sure. I mean, my right as soon as I put it down, I was like, I gotta be a part of this. I want to be a part of this. Yeah. I mean, like you said, No Country, all those Coen Brothers films, Fargo, Blood Simple, all of those. Then old westerns and old hard-boiled film noir. Those detective stories, all kind of rolled into there. These are films that I loved. It's something that I haven't really had the chance to do before, but it's films that like I could put on. Fargo's like a movie. If it was on TV, I can watch anytime. It's like anytime I can watch that. It's just so watchable. Just you always find something new and it's entertaining. And I've said this to Shane after seeing our movie a couple of times. And oftentimes I don't watch movies that I'm in several times, but there's something just so watchable about LaRoy that it's fun to revisit it. These characters are fun. They're hilarious. The story is interesting. So it's one of those. That kind of thing that you can just keep going back to. Um, so yeah, I knew I had to be a part of it, and I was ready to fight for it, and it all worked out.
Now, Shane, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is your first feature-length directorial debut, am I right? After having
you.
done short-lived films before. So, what was that like, making that big jump? Did that process feel daunting during the shoot? And now that you've gone through it, what did you take away from that experience as a filmmaker?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely intimidating. It took a long time to get my first feature made, so I think I was, just ready to get out and do it. So very happy to be there. I didn't know what to expect, but I had made a lot of short films, and the job's more or less the same, and we were a small little indie project, so the scope of it wasn't so different from a lot of the shorts that I had done. I think the biggest thing is just being able to work with this incredible cast and these actors who I've liked and whose work I've liked for so long, and to be able to have them as a possibility to be in a film that I was making was, I think that was the part that was a little bit intimidating and also very exciting. And was different than some of the other projects that I've been able to do. And so yeah, that was a little, a little nerve-wracking, but also, really thrilling to think that John and Steve and Dylan and Megan and, all these other great actors were going to bring these parts to life that I had written. So, but we were, we were, a small project. We didn't have a ton of time. And so I didn't have too much time to be in my head too much. It was just, put your head down and work, and thankfully they were nice to me and very generous to me, and had a good time making it with them.
Shane, piggyback off that, I did not know that Fargo, North Dakota existed prior to watching Coen Brothers' Fargo movie. But when I look up LaRoy, Texas, there's only one LaRoy with an E. It's spelled differently. So talk to me about the idea behind the title for this movie.
Yeah, I didn't, I knew the kind of town that I wanted. I have a lot of family in these types of towns and have spent a lot of time in these types of towns. So I knew the type of town that I wanted, but I didn't want the burden of trying to, for one thing, we shot mostly in New Mexico. So if I did base it on a real town, I didn't want the burden of having to try to recreate something that was real and have to be authentic in that way. So it was, it was a fictional place. I wanted a fictional name, but I knew that type of thing is what I was going for.
Now, I like talking about characters. Let's talk about your character, John. Ray in this film. Some audiences might quickly dismiss Ray as a beta male. And while watching this film, I couldn't decide whether Ray is a protagonist worth cheering for because he's a complicated guy. What's your assessment on Ray? And what was your process of embodying this guy who even his wife kind of thinks that he's a bit of a loser?
Yeah, I mean, I think you sort of kind of hit it right on the head, and I'm in the camp of is Ray worth rooting for? And I think that's, to me, that's interesting. I know a lot of people like their heroes to be clear and their villains to be clear, but I love the gray area, and I love the outcast, and I love the complexities of human nature. That's one of the reasons I do this thing. So I was intrigued by Ray being in this, weakened position, feeling trapped, feeling lost, feeling hopeless, which is something that is very relatable for pretty much everyone in the world. We all go through moments of that. And then being pushed to his breaking point, and then because of what happens, being thrown into an entirely ridiculous and unexpected set of circumstances and having to go on this ride, which challenges, everything he believes in, everything he stands for, and also pushes him to be something that he maybe never thought he would be or could be. Um, I think that leads to interesting storytelling and interesting drama. My approach to it was, a lot of it was on the page. I think tapping into those feelings of inferiority in myself and insecurities and you know feeling trapped in some ways. I think, like I said, we all have these. I think once you find that baseline, and then you understand the world. And as an American, even though I'm not from Texas, I grew up in Ohio, so there is a similar. It's different, obviously, but outside of the coasts in America, there's a lot of similar small towns. The accent or the landscape may be different, but a lot of these small towns have a similar type of mentality. Um, so finding those things was my into it, and then just translating that into this Texas town, and then letting the script take me on the ride from there. It wasn't like a. I don't like to like make a note of like, then this is when he changes to there, and when this is, and this is when this happens. I think if it's a good script, and like we had that will naturally unveil itself, and the journey. The fun part also as an actor is getting to ride on that train and letting it unfold as it should.
Very well said. And on that same note, Shane, in your process of creating this character, Ray, what crossed your mind? Because part of me empathized with Ray, but part of me also says, man, I hope I never get to be like Ray.
Yeah, with this type of story, there's, it's a hybrid, it's many things, it's different genres, it's, hopefully funny, it's very dramatic. So there's a lot of different ways to interpret it and a lot of different experiences I'm sure people have with something like this. But, I for me, all the characters in the stories do bad things and go to very dark places, but I wanted, I had fun writing them and I liked them, and I find them very sympathetic. And so for me, Ray's a very sympathetic character. I think you hopefully understand the descent that he undergoes, and when he goes to these really, absurd, dark places, you're there on the journey with him, and you may not approve of it or would never do anything like that in your own life, but I hope that you're there, at least interested in his story and interested in watching him and kind of understanding like how he got here, even if even if you're not approving. But I think so much of that is the performances. I mean, John's performance, to be able to go to those really dark places. And we've seen the film with a lot of audiences now at film festivals, and people really respond to John's performance and really respond to his character. And I think that's a huge accomplishment, that he's able to take this character that does descend the way he descends and goes to such dark places and does kind of some despicable things, but still remains so sympathetic and so interesting and so watchable, and the audience, in some ways still there with them all the way to the end.
I gotta ask you both this next question. The choice of I've been a big fan of Dylan Baker for a long time. The choice of Dylan Baker as the hitman or the assassin was awesome because I think the only other time that he was ever scary on screen was in that TV series Hunters. These are usually not the roles that Dylan usually plays, but he totally nails it. So, I mean, John, what was it like acting alongside Dylan, knowing that he doesn't usually play these kinds of roles? And Shane, what was the reason behind casting Dylan in this particular role?
Yeah, like we were just talking about the complexity of the story and the complexity of the characters, and Harry's, no exception to that. I don't want to give anything away, but from the very opening scene of the film, you know, he has to be, several things at the same time, and you have one assumption about him that needs to work, and that you need to feel a certain way about him. And then by the end of the scene, you're feeling a very different way about him. And he needs to embody both those things and be able to pull both those things off. And so finding an actor that could do that was really important, that, had could kind of pull off that small town, aw shucks, kind of like um, friendly guy thing, but then also have like some different layers to it. Is, like all these characters, it's hard to, it's a difficult thing to do, and it's a challenge to, find great actors who can pull it off. And, thankfully we were able to find people to do these terrific roles like John and Steve and Dylan. And yeah, he's so great. Like that scene always plays really, really well with audiences. It's always fun to watch that with the crowd, to see their journey through that 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it is, as they go. And it's always like a very audible reaction from him as they kind of understand who he is and what he's doing there. So Dylan was really, really great, and I've said this before, but credit goes to John for that, because we were discussing a lot of different names and who might be able to play this, and John suggested Dylan, and it was just like perfect. I mean, I couldn't imagine anybody else in that role. He's so great.
Dylan's, a friend. I've known him for years. He lives here, and his wife Becky, who's another wonderful actor. They live here in New York. We hung out. We played poker together. We actually did a play on Broadway together. So we've spent a lot of time, and I've always been a fan of his. Even like going back to, he has a brief part in Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, which is one of my favorites, and he's like totally a ridiculous character in that. But Dylan as a man, he has such a kind of like a childlike face, and a sweetness to him, and he's like the furthest thing from a creepy guy. He's just such a earnest, sweet, genuine man in real life. But I think, like you said, Hunters, and what really like made me realize, I know how talented he is, and this was before I ever knew Dylan. I saw him in Todd Solondz's Happiness, and he plays a real creep in that. And it's dark, but it's also kind of sympathetic. And I always saw Harry and Ray as, uh, kind of connected, or characters in tandem. They're parallel in a lot of ways. Like if Ray maybe let the darkness totally take him over by the end of this film, possibly he would go down the road and become like a Harry. So I think Shane and I both agreed on this. It had to be someone who was like a Ray in a way. Um, if it was just like a stereotypical actor who plays hitman and like things like that, I don't think there would have been anything dynamic or unique about it. I mean, everyone would see what's coming, but that it is Dylan, and the is so innocent seeming and sweet, but capable of such evil. Uh, I think that's exactly what it needed to be, and I always saw it as someone like a Dylan, or like in that vein, and we're really lucky that he was able to do it, and he came and played with us.
Oh, awesome. I'm actually scheduled to interview him next week. I can't wait to speak with him about this movie. And my final question to you, John, you've worked with and collaborated with several notable filmmakers over the years, names like George Stillman, Celine Song, Adam McKay, Julius Avery, to name a few. So what was that collaboration was like on the set working with Shane on this project? What was it about Shane that you think makes him a solid filmmaker going forward?
I mean, he trusts his actors. You know, I think he like you said, he cast people he trusted, and he you know guides, but gently guides. He's not like a tyrant on set. It was collaborative. We were able to discuss things and make it work, and and we'd get, oftentimes, like if it was something I think of the shotgun scene we already talked about, but in the gun shop, I was sort of uh apprehensive about putting the shotgun to my head, and he didn't like he let me gently get there to the point where I felt okay doing that. So yeah, it's a very collaborative and nurturing experience. And also he's just a tremendous writer, so he sets you up with a story that already is, well ahead of many stories that you have to play.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right, for my fans at home, everybody go check out LaRoy, Texas, arriving in theaters and on demand April 12th. John and Shane, thank you for talking to me and congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you. Have
Appreciate
a
it.